Real business, real people, real stories. Welcome to Real Business Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Benenati.
Welcome to episode 112. Today, Robert sits with Chris Grenier and talks about how Chris got involved in wholesaling and what it takes to get started.
Chris, welcome.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you are super busy with your wholesaling, your flips.
All things real estate.
I think you're one of my first, actually one of my first real estate interviewees. I've had everything. I've had, coaches, business owners, marketing gurus, but you're my first real estate agent / wholesaler.
Just keeping it in-house now.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, my name's Chris Grenier. I'm a wholesaler, investor, agent, all that good stuff, anything pretty much involved in real estate. I've been doing it now for about 10 years. Got involved in 2010, 2011-ish, when the market was at pretty much its worst imaginable state after the collapse. So fortunately, I graduated from UMass in Massachusetts in 2008. And so after I moved to Florida, I got involved in real estate at the worst time imaginable. Fortunately, my ignorance kind of worked out on it because I didn't really look at the market in terms of it being a collapse as a negative. I kind of looked at it as an opportunity and got involved in selling investment properties to overseas investors, kind of linked up with the guys who were in a similar mindset with me, and they really wanted to expand and start getting involved in investors who were actually going to buy properties then. So we were actually traveling to China, Singapore, Hong Kong, all over the world selling basically turnkey investment properties to foreign national investors who were buying them then. So that really kind of gave us the first experience with dealing with investors and rehabs and renovations and rental properties and all that good stuff. So as the market evolved, so did our business model. We started selling vacation homes to
You're adept.
UK, UK holiday home buyers in Ireland and Spain, Canada, pretty much all over the world. We have investors in pretty much every single corner, whether they want holiday homes or turnkey rental properties or secondary homes or anything like that. So over the past 8, 9, 10 years, we saw a little bit of everything, whether it's $500,000 vacation homes, $75,000 rental condos, $200,000 flips. And so over that time, got a unique experience from every facet of real estate. And that's kind of evolved. And so now as the market's good and everybody wants to get involved, we really got into the wholesaling game because it's a hell of a lot easier to sell to local investors than going to China. So
yeah.
It really
So you graduated up north in Massachusetts, right?
I did, yeah. I grew up in central Massachusetts.
And so when you got here to Florida, first of all, what brought you to Florida besides the weather?
Yeah, it was 99% the weather, but when I was a sophomore at University of Massachusetts, I did the Disney College program. I was an intern there for like 6 months or so.
Right.
So I just fell in love with Orlando. I was like, as soon as I can, I'm moving out of there. And so moving out of Massachusetts to Orlando.
So how'd you get yourself into real estate? Did you have someone that invited you into real estate here?
Sort of, yeah. It was kind of being at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I was a personal trainer at Gold's Gym over here in Dr. Phillips, and so that's kind of a hot spot for, obviously affluent people and stuff like that. And I was slowly getting into reading some of the ebooks that were just coming out about wholesaling and investing and stuff like that, and watching $1 Million Listing when it first came out, getting all excited about it. And so I was very intrigued and interested in the market and that industry. And so as I linked up with the guys at the right time, I just dove with both feet in. I didn't have any experience, and the reality of it is the guys are basically like, hey, do you want to get involved in our new startup company? We're going to be flying all over the world selling investment properties. And I didn't really know them very well. And
were you a partner with them, or it was just as an agent?
It was more of an agent. There was only 4 of us. There was 4 main partners, and then myself.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually all European, and so they actually needed an American counterpart. So they were basically like, hey, we're 4 European guys selling Florida vacation homes and rental properties to foreign nationals. We kind of need somebody who is American to kind of ease the gap in terms of being like making it look so suspect. They're like, why are all these European guys selling American properties and stuff like that? And so I was like,
Right.
hey, I'll die with both feet in, whatever. Like, let's give it a shot. And fortunately, it worked out.
How long were you with them before?
It was kind of an it was evolved over the years. There was 4 of them to start, and now there's one of them left, and who's basically my main partner now. And so over the course of time, everybody kind of went their own direction as the market evolved. One went one way, the other went the other way, and stuff like that. And so just like anything else, the business really kind of went one direction where 2 of the guys thought it should go another direction, and vice versa, and stuff like that. And so over the course of time, who you really kind of linked up with the most is the direction you went with. And me and my current partner now, Wayne, we really felt that our 1 + 1 equals 3 rather than just 2. So we work best with each other specifically and individually. So
You complement each other and,
yeah,
and balance
exactly.
out. Yeah,
That
works.
definitely
That works
makes
out,
a difference.
and that's hard to find. In
Yeah, it really
partnerships.
is. If you, it's like anything else. When you spend every pretty much day with somebody for 10 years, 50% of the time you want to kill them, 50% of the time you're best friends. But at the end of the day, it's everything that you bring to the table and he brings to the table. It fulfills everything that you need. And so it's really just a matter of finding someone who you can bounce ideas off of, who won't hesitate to tell you you're an idiot, and
you work out. You work good together.
Correct.
And that's the final. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Question: What's so I don't even know how I got to meet you. I know we've done business before.
We have. Yeah.
I've bought a couple properties from you as a wholesaler. And in the back of my head, I was always thinking, well, he's a wholesaler. He's selling me the property. Why doesn't he keep it? Why doesn't, he sell it to someone else, or, keep it, flip it? Because you do that. You rehab yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So, but it worked out, over the years. I've, a couple of deals we did together, and so you're an agent and a wholesaler, and you flip.
Correct. Yeah. We are a licensed real estate brokerage, Prime Property Group. I'm obviously an agent. We work under a primary broker. We've been in it long enough where we could become the broker, but we don't need to put that bullseye on our back.
You don't need it.
We'll let somebody else do it. So, the reality of it is, when it comes to wholesalers today, 99.9% of them have never purchased or flipped a house, and they are trying to sell a product that they don't know any better than what the end user knows about. You know what I mean? In terms of, they don't know the house any better than the person they're trying to sell it to.
Right.
And that drives me absolutely bananas. So yeah, when we do have a handful of renovations going on at the same time, and we are doing a lot of flips, unfortunately we don't have all the capital in the world, so we can't take on every single deal. So when we can't take one of those on specifically, that's when we wholesale it out. Or more along the lines of, we're waiting for one to close, and so we'll send it out. Other times we still want to let people know that we are wholesaling, so we don't just go off the grid for 6-8 months and then all of a sudden people forget who we are. So we really try to do it a couple of different ways, but more often than not, it's because we can't necessarily take on that project at that time.
All right. So for those listening and interested in possibly getting into the wholesaling side, or agents wondering how it works, I want to get into that a little bit. And one of my first questions is, what have you found the most challenging in the wholesaling side of real estate?
The most challenging part is finding the good deals and understanding what people are buying. Because one of the things you'll notice is, if you get into wholesaling and you see what people are selling, they're going to try to sell or wholesale anything they can find, whether it's a 2-bedroom condo in Orange City or Christmas or something like that, or if it's an actually good property, it's a 3-2 in Point Siena that is going to rent or sell quickly. So the most challenging thing is actually finding the good deals, because anybody can put a property under contract on the MLS at retail price and stuff like that and inflate the ARV or the market value. But if you don't know the market proper, and you don't necessarily know what investors are looking for or the actual spread, then you're just going to be selling garbage and not be able to sell anything. So the most difficult part is actually finding good deals.
Yeah, I can imagine that's the hardest part, because even for myself, I have to reach out through, I use the MLS, I reach out to you, I get, I'm signed up with a lot of different wholesalers, and that's how I get properties. But one thing that does drive me crazy on the buying side as an investor is the ARVs.
Oh, yeah.
How do you come up with that, something more realistic? Because they tell me, well, it's worth, I sell it for 100, you need 20,000 in repairs, and the ARV is like 180, and then when I do my research or my comps, it's really not.
Correct.
How do you make that work?
The biggest thing when it comes to finding an ARV is obviously the comparable sales and stuff like that. There's a couple of ways of doing it. Is, the best case scenario, you have a property that's conforming to other properties around it. It's not a unique 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house that's all crazy and is a 5,000 square foot house in a neighborhood where everything's 1,000 square feet. You never want the biggest house or the most expensive house in a neighborhood. So when it comes to finding the market value, the after repair value, the ARV, you really kind of look at what's selling around it. If you can get 2 to 3 comparable sales in the past 6 months, right now we kind of go back 8 to 10 months sometimes if there's nothing too specific. Because even back then, the market has still gone up. So if you can find a house that's conforming to it, that's within roughly 10 to 20% at most of the square footage. So for example, if it's a 1,000 square foot house, try to find something that's no bigger than about 1,200 square feet, and with the similar bedrooms and bathrooms and amenities and stuff like that, whether it has a pool or whether it has like a 1-car or 2-car garage. And then the biggest thing is, if you can't find something like that, it's really knowing the market. Very similar to actually a property that you purchased from me, the condo. I originally underestimated the ARV. I would think that, I think that condos in here are selling in the 75, 85 range or something like that. Maybe if you really renovate it, you're going to get about $100,000 because there are no strong comparable sales. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of condos on the retail side of things. So I think that that's a pretty good ARV, but you ended up knocking it out of the park with that, selling it for like 20% more.
And that was my first condo ever to flip. And the intention wasn't to flip it. It was actually to renovate it, hold it, and rent it out and keep it as a portfolio. But seeing what was happening, I really pushed the market there. And after my sale, everybody started selling and fixing up. And, based on the pictures, the photos they saw online, they went from, like you said, I think it was like 85,000. I think we got like 115 for it. Yeah. And I called you back just to tell you, and you were like, "Get out of here, really?" I'm like,
exactly. Yeah. I was pissed because we wanted that one too. But so I mean, finding ARV is one of those things where you really need to know the market. And if there are no actual good comparable sales, look at what is for sale or what's pending. And if honestly, best case scenario is there's nothing for sale, that means there's a very lack of supply there. And so you really get to kind of control the market. And it doesn't make any sense to try to price a property at $200,000 when it's obviously worth, $150, but it really gives you the ability to make your own comp and stuff like that and actually provide a product that nobody else is selling currently on the market.
Right. Now, so the biggest challenge is finding a home. You come up with the ARV by, an ARV is?
After repair value.
Okay, for those listening that don't know. Do you stay away from certain zip codes or areas or part of the city that you do not invest in, that you do not buy, or?
Actually, no. We are a equal opportunity investor. A lot of investors will read articles and they'll look at the negatives in specific areas. Talking about Orlando most specifically, if you Google Pine Hills, everybody is going to say, "Oh my God, it's a war zone and it's the worst part of Florida and crime's through the roof and stuff like that." But that's where buyers are. Buyers are buying properties in the under $200,000 price point. And again, it comes down to knowing the market. Even if it's Paramore in Orlando, which is very well known as being a quote bad area, it's one of the few areas in the entire metropolitan city that you can buy a property for under $200,000. So again, knowing the market, the average, let's say median income in Orlando is about $42,000, give or take. the average price of a property is $265,000 currently. Most people making only 40 grand can't afford a 265 property. So, they're going to look at the $150,000, $200,000 price range. And that's where those properties are. Pretty much nowhere else in the entire Central Florida area can buy properties.
I know
like
a
that.
few investors that dedicated themselves to buying in areas like Pine Hills, and they did very well for themselves. And I didn't mean it because of that. It was more so as to price points as well. Like some investors stay in areas like Dr. Phillips and Hunter's Creek, just because of the price point. They want to stay anywhere between the 250 and the 350 for whatever reason. Their mindset is set on that's the price point I want. And other investors say, well, I want to go to areas where home values are under 250 or closer to the 200 mark.
Exactly.
So I know wholesalers that dedicated just for looking for homes in like the Dr. Phillips, Windermere area. Distressed home, but they're in the 400, 500, 600,000s.
Correct. In those homes, what we have found historically is that they obviously take longer to sell. There's less people who can afford that price house. Secondly, when you get into that price point, the spreads are bigger because the numbers are bigger, but the actual ROI itself is very similar. So if you sell $100,000 house and you make 10 grand, you're gonna make 10%. But if you sell a $400,000 house, you make 40 grand, you're still only making 10%. So one is obviously the lack of buyers in that price range. Two is just the spread is the same. But number three is what we've really found is that buyers are in that under $200,000 price range. They just want a house. Like they want something that's clean, that's move-in ready, that's if it has granite in there and stuff like that, they're over the moon. When you go over that $400,000 price point, that's when you need to take into consideration your wife's over your shoulder being like, oh, I don't like, the closet being on the left-hand side of their house. I want it on the right-hand side of the room.
They're looking at workmanship. They're looking at,
they want quartz instead of granite. They want, bamboo instead of hardwood and stuff like that for the flooring. And so, you really need to spend more time into the design factor and the effort into, the specifics.
Got it. How many homes you estimate you buy per month, or you're under contract with?
Per month, our goal would be between 8 and 10. If we could pick up 10 properties a month, that would keep pretty much all of our capital moving consistently. It would keep all of our rehab crews moving, and it would really kind of fulfill all the demand that we have, not just from a wholesale perspective, but from the perspective of, how many houses can we renovate responsibly at the same time? So picking up that amount of houses would definitely be our goal. Some months we hit that, other months, some months are only 2 to 3, but overall our goal is definitely 8 to 10.
8 to 10. What is your ROI minimum that you look for, or your clients, your investors? Is there a minimum they say, well, if I don't get this much, I'm not buying?
I would say the minimum when it comes to a flip, you should be between 13 and 15%. A lot of people obviously swing for the fences and they want that, 18, 20, 25% because they watch too much TV. And those deals are out there. Those are the home run deals that you see, once in a blue moon. But on average, if you can make, between 12 and 15% on a flip, you're doing very well. Because the whole goal in this market, especially with the lack of good inventory, you need to look at the net annualized ROI. So if you're making, even let's say you make 10% a year, you should be able to turn that money over 3 times a year at least.
Right.
So hopefully 4. So now you're talking about a 40% potential net annualized ROI. And that's what it really comes down to, because too many people think that each deal needs to be a home run. And for the weekend investor who obviously isn't doing this as a full-time thing, sure, they can wait around and hopefully, hit one out of the park once or twice a year. But, for somebody who wants to make it realistically their full-time job, it's more important to have something moving than absolutely nothing. Because if you make, let's say, 25% on one deal once a year, that's great. But, I'll bang out 5 to 6 of those, making 10 to 12% a year, which is significantly better.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Now, in the market today, you're looking at at what you're saying, about 15%, right?
I would say
Today.
on average, yeah.
Because back in 2010, 11, 12, we were looking at 20
you
plus,
hitting
25,
that hard.
30%.
And you have your choice of properties. Like you could drive down the street. We used to just go down to Point Siena and point at houses and be like, we'll take that one. We'll call the asset broker at, the bank and say, we want that one, that one, that one. We're buying them for $40,000, $50,000 at the time. And all day long, they're worth only 110 that back then, but that's still 50%, ARV in terms of what we were buying them for. Plus houses then, interestingly enough, they weren't as jacked up as they were. Most of the time it were people that just left. Like they just left them as they were because they're all, Point Siena 2004 built, 5 built or whatever. So that was a lot easier back then.
Do you see more investors? Well, not that you see now, but comparing 2009, 10, 11, 12 versus now, the amount of investors, are they the same, or you think there's a lot more?
Oh, it's a lot more. It's crazy right now. It's real estate over the past 3 years has been very similar to like Bitcoin in terms of everybody's getting in when they see it going up and they see it being easy now. Especially from a flip perspective, the average person now is like, okay, cool, because money's pretty easy to come by when it comes to hard money loans and private lending and stuff like that. And so, yeah, everybody wants to get involved after all the TV shows and stuff like that and all the ebooks that they're reading. And even more so from the wholesaling perspective. They all see these guys, a handful of guys make money, and so they all want to get involved, but they don't spend any time in actual effort doing anything other than just either reposting somebody else's property or going out there and essentially scamming a seller saying they're going to buy the property, but they obviously aren't. They're just going to try to wholesale it. So there are a ton of investors out there right now. But fortunately, from a rental perspective, the seasoned investors are still there. They're not as excited as they were because in 2010 and 11, when you could buy the same property for 50% of the price, if not less, but rents are obviously gone up too to help counteract that. So the same houses that we were getting, $800 a month for in 2012, they're now renting for like $1,400 a month. So the increase in price has really balanced out.
I've seen and noticed. I used to buy, as of 2012, 2 to 3 at a time, and it made more sense for me to flip and rehab 3 at a time than do one, wait, and we were buying homes at $70,000, $80,000.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
The good days.
Yeah. But with that being said, I've seen over the years, like you said, people just wanting to get into the, because of the shows and HGTV and flip and flop and all this. They think it's that easy. They come in and they've been overbidding the properties to the banks, and the banks now got spoiled, and their prices are like way too high. And when you figure out, you do your numbers, your ARV and ROI, it doesn't make sense to pay what they want.
Yeah.
Right. And I've noticed, and it happened to me, I went with some clients looking at homes that the agent was there, the one that bought it, and she was the owner. And she came back to me that afternoon and says, listen, just make me any offer. I need to get out of this house. I put way too much money, just because they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that happening.
It's much like anything. It's kind of like somebody who, it's kind of like eBay in terms of these guys not knowing what they're doing, or they're just doing it to be a dick and pricing up properties and putting offers in just to get an acquisition, just to say they have something under contract, regardless of what it's priced at. And yeah, banks, 5-6 years ago, banks would accept 50 cents on the dollar. If they put an REO on the MLS listed for $100,000, there's a very good likelihood you could get it for 60, 65. Nowadays, if they list it for 100, you're going to pay 100, if not more. Yeah. But
there's a bidding war.
Yeah, the REO market's really gone. If you look on the MLS right now for Orlando, there's like 4 REOs out there, I think, or something like that. It's something crazy if you go under the $200,000 price point. I don't know if it's that the banks aren't releasing them. If I know that they obviously have a much more strategic process in terms of foreclosing on somebody. It's not just Autobots anymore. But yeah, that foreclosure market or in short sale market and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's yesterday. There's nothing there anymore. You really got to go off market and hustle in terms of finding motivated sellers, distressed homes, probates, and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to be a little bit more creative now.
Yeah, correct.
Are your investors still from other countries, from the foreign nationals, or you have?
Handful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a handful of investors who are still overseas who have been with us now for a handful, I would say, 8 to 10 years and stuff like that. A lot of them have given them referrals. So, whether they're in Taiwan, Singapore, Finland, here, there, and everywhere. But a lot of investors now are local. They're guys like yourself, other agents who I know who are investors who I build a relationship with, a handful of guys who we're very close with, and we kind of shuffle properties around, much like baseball cards. He gets a deal, I get a deal, we get deals, everybody kind of just passes them along to each other, and we all know we're making money off of one another. But once in a while, a guy hits a home run off you, and you close on you buy a property off him, and you see a $30,000 assignment fee. You're like, you dick. But he's a buddy of yours, and he did the work, and that's the way it goes.
I was about to buy one from you not too long ago, a month ago,
Yeah.
and the next day it was gone. I don't know who sold it from under you, but
yeah, we had it, and no, that one unfortunately we can blame somebody else in the office on that one. But yeah, he knew what we had, and I think there was like that just 12-hour window, when a deal comes up, and I must have had 15, 20 people reply to the email being like, all right, I'm on my way there, go take a look at it and stuff like that. And trust me, a lot of people.
Yeah, I get your emails, and I see them, right? But when I call on one. My eye is set on that, and I know it's a good buy.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
But it just didn't happen. Let's try to bust this myth about you could get into investing with no money. Let's tell those looking into investing, wholesaling, whatever it is. What's the truth behind that? Can you really buy with no money?
If you are the greatest salesman in the world and what you're doing more so than the next person, it's like trying to say, yeah, I'm going to buy Apple stock with no money. You're like, no, you can't. There are 1,000 small micro roundabout ways of making it happen, but the reality of it is nobody actually does it that way. You have to be Warren Buffett to know how to leverage and stuff like that. So the short answer is no, you can't buy property with no money. What they really are pitching when you hear or you see an ad like that, become an investor, no money down, buy houses and stuff like that, they're talking about wholesaling. And so what they are actually referring to is saying, you're going to talk to John Smith and say, you're going to buy his house for $100,000 and you're going to put no money as a deposit. You're going to put the property under contract and then sell that contract, either assign it or double close it or something like that, if you have another buyer. That's wholesaling 101. So they're really getting these people, mostly kids, hopes up to say, I'm going to become a real estate investor with no money down. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to make $10,000, $20,000 a deal. And those are the guys who are selling those bullshit $5,000 courses, $10,000 courses. Right. They're taking all of these people's money and telling them nothing that they can't learn online for free on YouTube or something like that. So if you think, or if you believe the only way that you're going to get into real estate is with no money down, and because you have no money, I would suggest doing your research, saving your money, and doing things properly. Because even if you do wholesale a property and you do put it under contract and you put no deposit down on it, there's no way that contract is going to hold up should the seller want to move on to somebody else.
Well, you defaulted already by that.
Yeah, without an actual earnest
escrow.
Money deposit. Yeah. Because when it comes down to real estate, what are the two things you need? You need obviously consideration and the money down or whatever. I forget the legal term on it, but yeah, those are the two things needed to make a legally binding contract.
So how difficult is it to get a hard money lender? If you have cash in hand, does it make more sense to get a hard money lender for, let's say, 3 months, the purchasing time, the rehab time, the marketing, and getting it closed? Mm-hmm. So let's say it takes you 3 to 4 months to get it, from A to Z, mm-hmm. get it closed. Would you take hard money and use other people's money, mm-hmm. or would you use your own cash?
I would 100% use hard money and other people's money for a couple different reasons. One, let's just say for the sake of argument, if you buy $100,000 house and you do have that $100,000 sitting in an account ready to be used, you can use, let's say, an 80% hard money loan, put only 20% down plus closing costs or whatever, and now have that other cash available to do another deal. You can leverage it properly, so now you can do multiple deals. But in the same token, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. At worst case scenario, if that deal goes south and you're going to be out 20 grand, or if that deal goes south, you're going to be out 100 grand if you use all of your own money. So it's better to obviously use somebody else's money to leverage your own cash as best as possible. Mm-hmm. And people complain about, hard money rates are 10, 11, 12% interest and stuff like that. But look at your credit card. You're going to pay 18, 19, 20% interest on your credit card all day long.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more. And plus you're using it to actually purchase an asset you're going to make money off of. So anybody who complains about hard money costs, especially if you don't have all of the cash liquid available to purchase the home, it's like, all right, cool. Give the guy his money for the hard money loan, and then you'll still make a good amount or do absolutely nothing. So that's really what it comes down to.
And there's a couple of rules, regulations, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to using a hard money lender. They usually require that the property is under a company, correct?
Yeah, 9 times
LLC.
out of 10, they'll make you put it under a company's name because it's a hell of a lot easier for them to foreclose on it that way.
If they need to.
Yeah, non-recourse.
And what do they request as a down payment or as a down payment?
Typically, it's 20%. And it's like anything else, it's a relationship based for most of the time. If you deal with a good hard money, especially a local guy, local hard money lenders are always the route to go. Try to avoid those national ones because you're essentially putting it in the hands of somebody you don't know, because if you put a deposit down on a property, you're relying on that hard money lender to come through. So you really want to build a relationship with a hard money lender that's local, that you can rely on, that you know he's going to send the money when it needs to and going to give you the good rate and the proper, loan to value. So if you're putting it down 20%, but over the course of time, for instance, when we use hard money lenders, we get 90, sometimes 100% of the purchase price, just because, they know us. We've been working with them for 6-7 years, and, we have the credibility and the, street, the actual, record.
Especially when there's a large margin between the purchase price,
that's the big thing.
And the final sale, and you're putting into the home X amount from your own pocket. It takes, I need $40,000 to rehab this. So they give you 100%, let's say 100,000, you put the other 40, so you got 140, and the house sells at 200, they're fine. They know they have equity in it.
Yeah, and they don't really have anything to lose at that point. So to them, it's an acquisition, and honestly, best case scenario is you default on it, and they get the property for 100, and then you've already rehabbed it. So yeah, hard money lenders that's really the cash cow in the real estate game. Those are the guys making the most, for sure.
And I explained to some investors or people wanting to buy and use hard money, right? And let's say they get charged 10%. So I'm like, okay, so use the hard money. It's like having a partner, right? He gets 10%. You're going to make maybe 10, 12% anyway with his money. All you put in is the time and the effort, right?
Yeah.
So some people just get too greedy and they want it all, right? And
yeah, I never quite understood when somebody gets mad when somebody else makes money. That's one of the things that I've seen it when it comes to assignment fees on contracts, and somebody will go to close. If you agree to buy a property from me for $100,000 and you're happy with the deal, you're going to make money on it, and you go to close and you see we're making, for example, a $25,000 assignment fee.
As long as I'm making money, I don't care.
Yeah, and then somebody, they get all pissed off about it, and they're like, "What the hell? I can't believe that you're doing this." Blah blah. I'm like, "Well, what do you? When you go to buy an iPhone, do you get pissed off knowing that it costs Apple only $200 to make it, and you're paying $1,000 for it? No, you're getting a product. The price. It's not like a surprise or something like that. But just like hard money lenders, somebody's like, "Oh my God, he's charging 10%." Blah blah blah. It's like, what do you expect? Like
it's his money.
Yeah, he's giving it to you pretty much blindly in terms of saying, like, I'm not doing a whole, go to a bank, go, spend 45 days giving them, everything but your firstborn child to get approved for the mortgage.
On wholesales, some people might not know this. So when I get one of your emails, right, and it says the description of the home, it says, sale price $130,000. But on top of that, I have closing cost.
Correct.
Because the buyer, with wholesalers, the buyers usually pay the total closing cost to the transaction.
Correct.
Why is this?
9 times out of 10, the end buyer for a wholesale property, they pay both sides of the closing costs. And that's because the seller has agreed to sell the property dramatically below what it's actually worth or what it could be worth for a few reasons. One is the fact that they said, look at, for example, I'll sell my house for $100,000, but I want $100,000 in my pocket when I leave. I don't want to have to go to closing and say, okay, cool, I'm only getting $97,000 and change or whatever. The whole point of the seller selling it for a dramatically low price is the fact that it's easy for them, it's straightforward, and there are no kind of unforeseen expenses. So what it really comes down to is a buyer, the person purchasing the wholesale property, they're still getting a great deal. So if you're buying it for 60% of the market value, it's going to cost you an extra $1,500, $2,000 or so in closing costs, but that's the way you have to buy the deal.
But it goes back to what we just mentioned a little while ago. They're worried about, they're not paying anything. I have to pay everything.
Yeah.
But if it still makes sense to buy the house and you still have your profit margin, why are you worried?
It's exactly. Not only that, but closing costs in Florida are dramatically less than
Anywhere
most
else,
states
yeah.
anyways. If you go to New York and you sell a property, you're spending, probably 2 to 3 times that, even just as a single side, closing costs, as just the buyer or just the seller side. It's crazy. So
you have attorney fees. I mean,
all
it just adds up.
The transfer taxes and stuff like that are more. Everything is just more expensive. So I mean, the reality of it is closing costs, even if you are paying both sides, they are still pretty low. It's when there's a double or triple closing cost that they kind of sting a little bit. But it's just, if you factor in the costs appropriately and you know what you're getting into, they shouldn't be a surprise. Like, you should have a proper spreadsheet knowing how much closing costs should be, and that's all factored into the end, ROI of the deal itself. So you don't buy the property for $100,000 thinking, okay, cool, closing costs are only going to be $200, when the reality of it is you should well know that they're going to be about $3,000. It's all just due diligence and really kind of understanding the process and what you're doing.
Have you or do you work with pools of just normal people that said, hey, Chris, I have $100,000. Here it is. You deal with it. Just give me my 100 plus X percentage. Do you work with that or not?
Yes. We do have a couple investors. Actually, it's more than we desire to have at the moment, just because of the lack of inventory. But yeah, we do have a lot of investors who find us online. They see their, our marketing, whether it's a YouTube or whatever. And they essentially say, like, I'm in California or I'm in, Sweden or something like that. I just kind of essentially trust you. Here's the cash. Let me know when to send it to the title company and stuff like that. And you handle everything from A to Z. And then just let me know when I have to sign something and, collect my check. And that's really a unique way that we work, because a lot of investors, or I should say wholesalers here, they don't have the actual history of a track record when it comes to doing their own deals and taking a property from A to Z. So yeah, a lot of investors do reach out to us and they basically say, hey, we know the Orlando market's hot. Mm-hmm. We want either rental properties or we want flips. We want to take advantage of things. So, I got $1 million to work with, so what can you find me and how can we, get the train rolling, and how long is it going to take for you to, get a deal accomplished? So
great.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, those are good. Now as an agent, I guess you wear 2 hats, right? Tell me a little bit about the real estate side of it without the wholesaling or rehab side.
The only retail real estate that I do personally is when we resell. Yeah, resell one of our flips. So when we get the property that is now ready for the retail market, that's when, I put my real estate hat on and say, cool, here, let me get the MLS listing up and, put it for sale on Zillow and stuff like that, and talk to the other agents when they view it and things of that nature. But when it comes to the residential side of things, in terms of somebody just saying, like, oh, hey, I'm looking to purchase a house in Dr. Phillips.
Do you
what
do that?
can you show me? No, I do not.
You do not.
My heart goes out to people who have the patience to do that. I do not, unfortunately. It's not something I've ever done, actually. I never got into let's hop in a car on a Saturday and let's go view 7 or 8 houses. It's a very different
So you're
mindset.
not, basically you're not a buyer's agent on that side.
No.
And you don't market or do anything to get sellers to say, hey, you want me to sell your house, list your house. You don't do that.
No, we don't do that. When somebody wants to, and they, a friend of ours or something like that,
Then,
sure,
of
we
course.
do, in circumstances of that, but we don't put any effort into trying to find those
Leads
types of
and marketing
leads
like that.
because it's an uphill battle. And those people, God bless them.
It's a different
Yeah.
sector of the real estate industry.
It really is.
You got the buyers, the sellers, new construction, rehab flips, investments, vacation homes. I mean,
we did it for a while. We had, what we used to do in 2015 and 16 with all the property expos in the United Kingdom and stuff like that. We would offer what's called inspection trips. So we would be at the property expo overseas in Birmingham or in London or Wembley or something like that, much like a home show here. There are booths from all over the world, Italy, Spain, Florida, stuff like that, selling the vacation homes. And so we would have a booth up, say like, oh, purchase Disney vacation homes, their dream home for, let's just say $300,000. And they say, sure, but how do we purchase this? Be like, well, we'll offer you a subsidized trip to fly over to Florida, for 4 nights. You leave from Heathrow, you fly into Orlando, you're there from Thursday to Sunday. We'll view all the properties, you see a couple of different developments. You'll see, you'll meet the management company who will be looking after it, open up your U.S. bank account and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we actually had a team of guys who were basically that, essentially acting as real estate agents when people come over here and show them those houses. And I did that for a little bit, and that was just a nightmare. It was too much. Yeah,
it's too much. I see your pictures online. You travel a lot, especially on vacation, right?
Yeah.
You and your wife. Yeah.
Yeah, we.
How's it going with the COVID and all this? It's
been
limited, right?
Yeah, it's been limited. We're doing our best to do like weekend trips. We were just in Charleston.
Locally?
Yeah, more in Florida. We've been going into the West Coast quite a bit, Clearwater and St. Pete and stuff like that. We were just in Charleston, South Carolina. We got lucky. We squeezed in a 2-week trip to Hawaii in February, right before everything hit the fan.
That was your last trip?
That was the last trip on a plane. Yeah, and this has been the longest we have not been on a plane, I think, in at least 5 years. And it's driving me insane. It sucks. It's one of those things.
That's like your hobby, right? That's your thing.
It really is. It's our, my wife, she works her ass off. And so when she has time off, she likes to get away, as do I. Fortunately,
of course,
my schedule and career and stuff like that, it allows me to really just go whenever I want. So whenever her schedule allows it, we definitely take off. But, it's one of those things where, you always hear people doing it and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I know and our good friends and stuff like that, they're like, oh, I wish I could go to Thailand, or I wish I could go to, France or Amsterdam or stuff like that. I'm like, you can, it's expensive. And, you don't have to do it. You don't have to fly first class and stay at the most expensive hotels and stuff like that. Like, you could do it on a budget, but traveling has been one of the most, eye-opening experiences, because I used to travel, as I was just mentioning, when we used to fly back and forth to China and London and Singapore.
It was business.
On a monthly basis. Yeah. Flying coach to China on literally once a month, sometimes twice a month. It just drains you, and you just dread every second of traveling. So now, fortunately, we're in a situation where we can travel for pleasure. It really makes you appreciate it even more.
It changes the dynamics.
It really does. It kind of gives you, you need to recharge. When people work their ass off and they spend 50, 60 hours a week working, and they don't take vacations a year, it's you see them get burnt out, and they would just become different.
I personally loved traveling, right? And it got to a point where I just didn't want to deal with airplane, the lines, the take off your shoes and get half naked to get,
Yeah.
And living here in Florida, I found that we could go anywhere within a max of 2 hours, and it feels like you're on an island somewhere.
That's
away from
one of the
from
great
the hustle
things
and bustle
Florida,
about
man.
Orlando. Yeah,
Sarasota, St. Pete, it's fantastic. And yeah, you're an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and you could be in Barbados. You wouldn't know the difference. You got white sand and nice sunsets. Like, what more do you need?
Cool. Chris, before we go, last question for those listening. What would you recommend if they're looking to get into wholesaling? What would be your
first step is understand the market. Do the research, and this is something that nobody wants to do. Everybody wants to go the easy route. They read the ebooks in terms of, who to market to, the direct mail, the Facebook campaigns, the Craigslist ads and stuff like that. Nobody talks about understand the market and appreciate what you are getting involved in, because so many people today, if you go on any of the Facebook groups, any of the private real estate forums and stuff like that, all of these kids, and I say kids because they're early 20s and stuff like that, they talk about deals and stuff like that like they are cheap baseball cards, and they don't appreciate the fact that you're talking about somebody's house that you essentially promised and you contractually and legally agreed to purchase, full right knowing that you're not going to. So now you screw over these sellers, you're tossing them around, and you're treating them like their property and where they live is nothing more but just a quick opportunity for you to make a couple of bucks. So understand the market and knowing what properties you can actually sell. Don't just try to grab anything you can. Know what investors are buying, know what retail buyers are looking for and what their end product is. Understand what properties are selling for in terms of the ARV and everything like that. Don't just jump into it thinking that it's nothing more than just a marketing game in terms of, cool, I'm going to post bandit signs on the side of the road and doorknob stickers or whatever to say I'm going to buy your house cash quick and stuff like that. Understand the market, what you're getting involved in. Understand what people are buying and what sellers are looking for and how you can actually help them. Don't just think it's a game where you're going to go in and make all the money and drive the Ferrari and stuff like that.
I think they don't see this as a profession. They
Correct.
see this as momentarily, make a quick buck, and I'm in and out. And that's what I've seen from a lot of people in the real estate industry. They're just after a commission. They don't develop a relationship with their clients. It's not about service, knowledge. It's about just making a quick buck and move on to the next one.
It's all that. It's the same guys who 1 week they're pitching Bitcoin, the next week they're pitching timeshare, the next week they're pitching, this week they're pitching Tesla stock.
No.
Everybody's a stockbroker this week, and next week I'm sure everybody will be selling, gold or silver,
eBay,
or copper,
Amazon,
or whatever.
Masks, whatever it is.
It's funny you say the Amazon. That's the new thing. Everybody, all the previous wholesalers who are selling their courses and stuff like that, I noticed that being an Amazon seller is now the big thing. I don't know. It's crazy.
Are you ever thinking of maybe coaching or teaching? Have you thought of it?
I thought of it, and honestly, like 6 years ago, that was what I really wanted to do. And then honestly, what I started getting involved in that in terms of just bringing guys on board, in terms of like guys who I know wanted to get into the market and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the amount of time that I would have to spend, or that I did spend trying to help them and stuff like that, it's really
it didn't pan out.
It didn't pan out. Not because necessarily it's their fault or my fault and stuff like that. It's just that I can't do what I'm good at by taking time away, from our normal business and stuff like that. And even if we did create a coaching program and say it's $10,000, something like that, the money isn't worth it, because I know when I talk to somebody and they're not doing anything and they get pissed off that they're all of a sudden not overnight millionaires, it'll drive me batshit crazy. It's just not worth it.
This takes a long time to get into real estate and make a career out of it. It's not. It doesn't happen overnight.
Those who can do and those who can't teach. That's what it comes down to.
So if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Well, our brokerage is Prime Property Group. Easiest way to reach me is going onto my website, chrisgrenier.com. Grenier. And so, you could reach me 5 different ways on that. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff too. So you just check me out there, Chris Grenier. And yeah, here in Orlando and readily available for anybody who has questions or wants to find some good deals.
Great. Well, Chris, thank you so much again for coming out. Again, it was a pleasure, talking to someone that knows what he is doing.
At least one day at a time.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
Okay. Now, before you go, if you like the topic in today's episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on iTunes or visit realbusinesspodcast.com for more information. Thank you. Until next week, stay real.